Hello and welcome to your weekly dunk of the electric car biscuit, brought to you by the team at electrifying.com. On the podcast this week, we'll be asking, has Kia hatched another winner? Audi and Tesla cut prices, and the firefighting feature that Renault is gifting to the world. Welcome to the Kilowatt Half Hour. I'm Ginny.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Batch.
It's so lovely to have you on the podcast, Batch. I feel like I haven't seen you for such a long time. It must be all of 24 hours?
I know, it's just been just a mere day, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
I don't see you for ages, and then I see you twice in 1 week. But
I know. So yeah, time to start off with what we've all been up to. Shall we start? Because I have a real feeling that perhaps our week has been a bit more exciting than yours, Tom.
I suspect so.
Colder.
Sorry.
Definitely
Sorry.
cold.
It wasn't that cold. It wasn't as cold as I was expecting.
Yeah.
Anyway, Batch and I have been off to the Arctic on an expedition. So we went out with Polestar, and we were really lucky enough to go to their winter testing site, which is in a place called Jokkmokk, which I'm sure that for all our Swedish listeners, I'm saying that incorrectly. So please do correct me in the comments below. So Jokkmokk is in the Arctic Circle in Sweden, regularly has temperatures of as low as sort of minus 25, 27. And it is where they go and test all of their cars before they go into production. And we spent a lot of time with the most lovely man, didn't we?
Oh.
Who was there, chief engineer, been at Polestar for many years, was at Volvo before that. He literally creates the tracks on a frozen lake, on a meter of frozen ice. And he goes up there for a month at a time, at times of year when they only get like 2 hours of daylight a year, just really putting the cars to their paces. So it was a really amazing experience, wasn't it, Batch?
It was incredible. And we were able to put the Polestar 2 and the new 3 and 4 through tests which you just can't do in the UK, obviously, because we don't have that kind of weather. So it really gave me a different insight into the capability of those cars. And of course, I spent all day just drifting, which was just so much fun. I mean, you cannot not have fun, can you, doing that? So
Batch was literally in his own live video game, weren't you? You were literally like some kind of, but it was, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. What it gave for me was, they talk about Polestar being a performance brand. And actually I could see what you saw on those, because there were 3 different circuits. Each was slightly different, designed to really, help them develop that specific car. And you really did get to grips with the different characteristics of each car, didn't you? Polestar 3, for example, is, it's the SUV of the range. It's much more forgiving. It really gives you a sense of confidence. It covered up loads of my mistakes. Yay, which was great. Polestar 2, I found a lot harder. It's not got all the sophisticated, equipment that you get with the 4 and the 3. It was harder to slide. It was harder to maneuver. And then Polestar 4 is just a beast, isn't it? You can just thrash that thing.
Yeah. I know. And I think, a lot of people think that all electric cars built by one brand, they're all going to drive the same. And this event showed, like you've just said, how different. The 2 was quite snappy, and whereas the 4, I mean, the 4 we were driving the 4 on the fastest circuit, weren't we? And you could throw this car into these lurid 4-wheel drifts at, like, I don't know, 60. It felt like 100 miles an hour. It wasn't, but yeah, it was really revealing how different all of these 3 cars were. So not only that, but we ate a lot of reindeer as well, didn't we, Ginny?
Well, you ate a lot of reindeer. I didn't eat a lot of reindeer, but please do comments below that Batch and he's been
Bambi.
eating.
Bambi eater.
Father Christmas. What's he going to do?
Well,
you're probably eating
sorry.
one of the key ones. Rudolph. There's no Rudolph anymore, Batch, because you ate it all.
Well, blame
All of
Polestar.
him.
Blame Polestar. I was merely following orders, really. But
okay,
well.
But it was great. But Tom, I know, because I've spoken to you about this. You can top us all when it comes to drifting in an ice drift, because you've done it in something that's not really built to drift in snow, is it?
Well, yeah, I a few years ago I did a similar sort of experience, and we spent all day arsing about on the frozen lake, and we'd driven onto the lake on a coach, and the coach driver, who'd been sitting there all day in his coach, just came along and said to one of the engineers, "Could I have a go in one of your cars? Because it looks like fun." And the engineer said, "Well, you can have a go in one of my cars if I can have a go in your coach." And the coach driver went, "Yeah, okay." So the coach driver went out drifting in this car, and then we all got on this coach with this engineer driving it, and we sat on the back seat like naughty schoolboys while this driver went drifted it that way and then that way and then this way. It was absolutely hilarious, being thrown about like in the end of the Italian Job when they're on that bus, but we didn't go over a cliff. So yes, that was huge fun.
I think we should request that if we ever go back there, Batch. I'd like that
Yeah.
a lot. Okay, let's move on to slightly more accessible types of cars. What's been in the news this week, Tom? What's really caught your eye?
Well, there's been today some price cuts. So,
Oh, we like that. We like a bit of a price cut.
well, Audi reintroduced the Q4 with the smaller battery. So the 63 kilowatt hour battery they used to have, and then they took away.
Which they took away from memory because it was really inefficient and didn't take you very far.
Well, yeah, 250 miles they reckon now. I think it's all been upgraded, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah,
I think that
should be much better.
the early cars from Audi with that battery were not massively efficient, but you're right, it has been upgraded. I do them a disservice.
Yes. So it's called the 40 because Audi's naming system's so sensible. And it's £5,395 less than the 82 kilowatt hour battery, isn't it? So that's nice. But to kind of rain on their parade, Tesla have revealed prices for the Model Y. And we did think, oh, look, Tesla, because they revealed originally that kind of launch edition, launch series, they called it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which was like 60 grand. And we're all like, oh, the price has leapt up. But no, they've come out with the prices for the rest of them. And it's actually dropped by 2,000. So the rear-wheel drive now starts at 44,990.
Wow.
Which isn't a lot, really, is it?
It's not, and you're getting a lot of car for your money with that. And I've got to say, I think the Model Y looks cracking now. I think it looks, cyber cabish. I don't know what you make of it, Batch, but I'm a big fan of its new look.
Yeah, they've done a really smart job with it, haven't they? But the price, the lower price really surprises me because we're at this stage now where Tesla really could charge a premium, couldn't they? There are so many cars in that sector that Tesla, they could charge a premium because people really want to have a Tesla, whereas they
Do they?
keep lowering.
Yeah, do they? Could they though?
Well,
Because I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been on a few different BBC radio channels this week chatting about that very thing. Because if you actually start to look at what's happening with Tesla, we have seen a slowdown in sales, and January across Europe, not just the UK, but I think it was a 60% drop in sales in Germany. Year on year, there was a big drop in sales in France year on year. Now, it could be the aging lineup, and it could be that you're right, Model 3 is desirable and that's all a thing of the past, and we'll finally get is it going to be the Model Q, the small car, and then everything will be rosy again. But I think it's a really interesting story to watch.
We have more on Tesla later, don't we? When the reader
we
questions.
do. Oh, we do have more on Tesla later. Yeah. Oh, yes, we do. We do. Okay. Anything else that's caught anyone's eye in the news, Batch? Anything that's caught your eye particularly?
Well, there's this Renault, isn't there? I mean, Renault's making this firefighting feature available to all EV makers. I mean, it's sort of like what Volvo did with seatbelts, isn't it? And Ford with like quick clear windscreens. It's sort of making this technology, which is really quite clever, rolling it out to the greater good, you could say.
Yeah. And it's this system called the Fireman Access System, which allows water to reach the battery cells really quickly, so it reduces the time. I mean, this is not my area of expertise. We do know that people do have a lot of concerns about fires to EVs, even though statistically, depending on what study you look at, EVs are as low as 20, but as high as 80% less likely to catch fire than their internal combustion engined counterparts. But I think it'd be really interesting if there are any firemen listening to our podcast. Shout out to the firemen. Could you just head over to electrifying.com, check out that story? Mike got it live 18th of March, and it's this Renault innovation. Let us know in your experience what you think of it.
Oh, Tom, Jenny, firefighters.
Oh, sorry. Oh, God, I'm really showing my age. I don't know firefighters. Sorry. Firefighters. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Thus said the woman in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. Okay, I think what has caught my eye is Kia again. Are they ever going to stop, do you think? Are they just going to, because I know they trademark like EV 1 to 9. Do you think secretly they've got like 9 to 18 as well? Just to keep going with new cars?
I
Because
know,
there's 3 more coming.
I know, and if
And then
that's
some
not,
vans. Yeah.
yeah, and if
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
enough, they want
Yeah.
they want to make vans as well. I mean, it's just exactly just slow down for heaven's
I
sake.
know. I know. I think we'll chat about the cars probably on next week's podcast because we will have a lot more to tell you and show you by then. Um, but I think the vans are interesting for me because I think this PV5, which is kind of in between a transit and a connect in size, but more importantly, is actually an ID Buzz rival because it will be passenger version and there'll be a van version. And then I don't know if anybody saw, we did a quick walk around video from the Los Angeles show at the end of last year. And they had this super cool camper van version, which was there with all sort of adaptable rails inside. And it was very, very cool that had come out of their California design studio. So there's going to be a lot more variants coming down the line. Looks like it's going to be based probably on, we'll share battery motors with EV3, we think, rather than the bigger cars, the 6 and the 9. But I think that is, for me, really interesting that they're pushing ahead in that so much. And I think it looks nice. I mean, I haven't seen it in the metal, but I think those images that they've shown, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I know we've been doing a lot of work with our vans channel, and that's recently launched. But the amazing thing when it comes to vans is that sector is very old fashioned and traditional, isn't it? And it's always it's always sprinters and transits and transporters, isn't it? Whereas now it's really opening up to new makers and brands which have traditionally have just, well, for Brits that is, just traditionally have made cars, and Kia is one of those. But yeah, I think Tom and I next week we're driving this new Farazon, aren't we? Which is another sort of EV maker that's trying to sort of elbow its way into this fascinating marketplace, which is the electric van sector. So yeah, really, really exciting times at the moment.
Yeah, because you look at some of the vans. I was just reading, putting up a report about the Citroen E-Relay, and that's based on a design which it predates the iPhone.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like 20 years old, literally, and they put they put
Really?
new dashboards and things in it, but the basic
Wow.
design of that van is over 20. It's
Yeah, the interesting thing for the PV range, and I'm sure they're going to say this is way down the line, but have you heard they've talked about it all being very modular? So there'll be a coupling system with the cab. So you'll have the cab, and then you'll have these different options that they'll use electromagnetic coupling, and obviously a lot more technology than that to take the back off and replace it. So you could have your transit, your work van for the week, and then you might be going off camping for a few weeks. You go into your Kia dealership and they uncouple it, and you get the camper van.
Yeah.
Or you get the family version. I mean, I don't know how practical that would be, but it's definitely. I mean, I literally wouldn't rule it out. I would not rule it out. I think there's so much innovation happening in this space now that it's quite exciting. I think who knew vans could be so exciting? And yes, we do.
That's really futuristic, though, isn't it? I mean, it reminds me of something like the Thunderbirds, where you just see, you've got a vehicle, and then it just goes into a garage, and the back comes off, and then something else comes on, and I don't know. It seems really futuristic. This idea that you've got one vehicle and you can use it in a multiple number of ways. So,
if you're old like me, you can remember some other cars that did that. Of course, there was a Mercedes concept, probably about 20 years ago, but also Nissan had a actual production car in Japan, which I can't remember the name of it. I think it was a Sunny, which you could change the back of it. So you could have a convertible, you could have a coupe, or you could have like this kind of shooting brake style. And it flopped because in Japan, nobody had room to take the tops off and put them because they got no garages. They don't have like anywhere really to park. So there wasn't the space. So it just flopped. Nobody wanted it.
There was the Citroen.
I was just
the Citroen in the noughties. Was it the C3
Pluriel?
That was it. That became a little van, and then you could have it with a sunroof at the top. That you could do that, couldn't it? So
I know.
It could be a van, but it had
it
these
could be a
huge
van.
arches.
It could be you could take the back off. You could take a back section off it, and it could be like a little low load bed at the
Yeah.
back. I
But
think I've got.
it sounded great, didn't it? But then, of course, what do you do with the roof bars? So that was always the problem, wasn't it? And then you had to find somewhere to store all this, basically your entire roof, and that was always the problem. But yeah, I know.
Yeah, which is now the problem with all those parcel shelves.
Yeah.
The number of times I send a car back that we've had in to test with the parcel shelf still in my garage because I've had the dog's big dog crate in the back.
Is that what you've got in the other room that you use for podcasts, where you've got all that? It's just parcel shelves. I thought it was like some sound deadening foam, but it's just a place where you keep all your stolen parcel shelves from Tesco's.
Don't give all my secrets away, Tom. Come on, terrible. Okie doke. So let's just have a chat about. Should we move on to Barnard's Bargains? What have you got for us, Tom?
Oh yeah. So Hyundai Kona, which isn't something we see very often in the Barnard's Bargains, but Hyundai's are in there. So an advanced 65 kilowatt, £274.33 a month. Now, there are some bargains that are kind of 250 quid. So this isn't like one of those, well, we'll have to go out and get it. But I think that's a really nice, solid, sensible car, isn't it, for under 300 quid a month?
It's a good car, that. I do like it. It's efficient. It drives well. It's spacious. It's not going to rock your world. You're not going to get out every day and do a little kind of happy jump when you get into it and go and drive. But it just does what you need it to do as a family car. However, your next Barnard's Bargain, I think, may give me a little happy jump.
Yeah, so BMW i4. So it's the eDrive 35. So it's the entry-level one, which I don't think we've had a go in, have we? We ought to get one in.
I don't think I have, no.
Under 400 quid a month, 399.
That's not bad, is it?
That's nice, yeah.
The i4 is a car I always forget about in that sector.
Yeah.
It arrived, and it was great, wasn't it? But then now I just keep forgetting it exists. So
I mean, that I still think that's possibly one of my top 3 drivers electric cars, the i4. It drives beautifully, and it's also massive plus in its favour. It's incredibly efficient. They've really nailed the efficiency with it, which, considering that actually it wasn't developed on a dedicated electric platform, so it's basically just a nice car that they've, fiddled about with and blocked the battery and the motors in. I bet the engineers are like literally cringing listening to me saying that, aren't they?
Here's a question for you, Ginny, that's further to our earlier conversation.
Oh, go on.
Would you rather have that i4 or a Born VZ? I bet they're about the same on the monthlies.
Oh, I'd have the i4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Just because it's I would.
Inside.
It's just, God, if they're similar on the monthlies.
I bet they are.
I mean, I love the Born VZ. I think it's just strikes that brilliant balance between great everyday driving and having something sporty. But I mean, that's a good price for that. But then, I don't know. What would you have?
I don't know. I mean, the 35, I haven't driven it, but I'd imagine it's slightly slower than the other ones. And also you can imagine it looking rubbish on kind of 12-inch wheels and having to be a rubbish colour at that price as well. But I don't know. I might have the Born. Such a... It's kind of that whole thing that you used to have when you were choosing a company car. Would you have a BMW 316i or a Golf GTI?
Yeah.
And...
I'd have always had the Golf GTI, actually. This just shows how I've aged. Basically, that's the moral of this story. If you're older, you'll have the i4. That's, Batch and I. Mentally old. You're mentally old, Batch, not physically old.
Oh, thank you very much. Well saved.
And the last bargain is something which is perfect for you two if you want to go drifting on your way to Waitrose, which is a Polestar 3 long-range dual motor, £575. That's cheap. Now, I did look at how much you get for sort of around that, and you can't get an i5. i5s are cheap at the moment on the leases, but they're still 620 quid a month. So, 575 quid is good for a car of that size and price.
And quality. The interior on that car is beautifully finished. It's so impressive. And the quality of the ride is incredible. So it's a lot of money. Let's not sugarcoat it, but particularly if you're able to take advantage of, tax benefits through some kind of company car scheme, then that's pretty appealing, isn't it? Okie doke. Before we move on to all of our questions and comments from you, let's just take a moment to remind you that this episode of the Kilowatt Half Hour is brought to you with the help of Anderson EV. If you're into design as much as you are electric cars, you will love their home chargers.
Anderson's A2 and A3 aren't just functional, they're beautifully made with a choice of 200 colours and finishes so they can blend in with your home or be made to match your car.
There are no bulky boxes, just great tech that looks great and also works. And you can find them at anderson-ev.com. Right then, let's find out what you've been saying over the last week. Should we start off with this week's buyers in a pickle? What do you reckon? Yeah?
Yeah, okay. So shall I do this one? David Best, who came via podcast at electrifying.com. If you have any questions, you can go to the same place. He said, this is an interesting one. He said, hello, I have a 2023 Tesla Model 3. It has done 18,523 miles in 19 months and used 3,858 kilowatt hours of electricity. I like this chap. This is my kind of my kind of detail. That equates to an average of just over 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour, which is pretty astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah,
On
it
last
is.
week's podcast, Ginny said she was impressed that she'd been getting just over 3 miles per kilowatt hour from her Cooper in winter. I know that Mike has previously commented that he was struggling to get 3 miles per kilowatt hour in his Ioniq 5. Ethically, I feel very uncomfortable about owning a Tesla. On the other hand, it feels ethically wrong to be also deliberately significantly increase my energy footprint by looking at far less efficient cars. The Tesla is my first EV. What else out there has a similar average of over 4 miles per kilowatt hour in a full year of mixed British weather?
Okay, it's a good one, isn't it?
Mm.
I mean, I was thinking about this quite a lot, and there were two cars that. Well, there's only really one car actually that sprung out for me. The Polestar 2, I thought would be a great option for anyone looking to replace their Model 3. We talked about this on the podcast last week. I just don't think you're going to get those levels of efficiency in anything else, and you won't in the Polestar. I think the one you might be able to get close to is the Ioniq 6. So it's an interesting choice instead of a Polestar. Sorry, instead of a Model 3. And it is a pretty efficient car. So then I actually started thinking, Tom, I was thinking, why don't we get in a couple of options that could be an alternative and we'll do a range test on them?
Good
And
plan.
then we can answer it correctly. I mean, they would be the ones that, for me, I don't know about Tom, what do you reckon? I think Ioniq 6 is an obvious one.
I can't remember how efficient an ID7 is.
Good choice. Very good choice.
Because I seem to remember it's not too bad, is it, an ID7?
Oh, I can tell you. Okay, right. So there's a brilliant thing called the Norwegian range test, and this happens with I don't know who organised it, but it's loads of Norwegian journalists, and every year in the coldest months of the year, Nicola did it last year. They take a whole variety of cars, and I've actually got the figures up for last year's. So the Ioniq 6 in those official tests, and all the cars are driven very similar conditions, temperatures set to the same on the same route. Obviously, drivers are different. You know, it's really difficult to get range tests really precise. But the Ioniq 6 lost in those conditions 23.8% of its range, which the winner, that, you know, if you look at which ones did really well, there were cars like the BMW i5 that lost 12.2% of its range. The winner was the Hi-Fi Z, which lost just 5.9% of its range. And I think if you remember that Nick drove an EV9 in that, and that lost 12.5% of its range. So not as impressive perhaps as some of the others. They did the ID7 as well, and that lost 32% of its range in winter.
I'll tell you what, the i4 might be an interesting one. We should probably
Yeah.
get one in and get one of those 35s in and kill two birds with one stone and see what it's like and do an efficiency test on it. I bet on small wheels that would be quite efficient.
Okay. Well, we will revert back to you, David Best, via podcast at electrifying.com, and we'll have a slightly more scientific decision for you in the coming weeks.
The other one I would say is worth waiting for is the new Mercedes CLA, because I've seen some figures and some of the tech on that, and I think it's going to be pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Yes. Yeah, that is interesting. And just on the Tesla thing, we've had a message in from Michael Jack. I think that was an email as well. Have enjoyed your informative website, but I cannot find any commentary on Tesla's customer backup and service offer. My own experience when my Model 3 hit problems when under warranty was beset with delays. I also wrote a handwritten even letter to the company's UK CEO, never received a reply. Have you had any customer feedback on this subject? That's the first thing I've heard, but it'd be interesting to know if any other Tesla owners have experienced issues with that, with similar things in the UK, with problems when a car was under warranty. Why don't you get in touch if that's something you've experienced, or you've any advice for Michael Jack? Okay, another buyer pickle. Have you got one for us, Batch?
Yes, I have. I've got one from this splendidly named Mr. Watt. So thank you so much for getting in touch, Mr. Watt. Hopefully we'll hear from your brother, Mr. Ohm, next week. But anyway, so Mr. Watt says we had a Hyundai Ioniq 5 that ticked a lot of boxes for our disabled son. Large passenger door openings, great leg room, adjustable rear seats. However, that car was stolen from our home. For various reasons, we did not replace it with another EV, and the whole incident knocked our confidence in living with an EV. We are now looking to go back to an EV, but we now require space for a wheelchair whilst our son recovers from surgeries to help him with his mobility. For various reasons, we do not qualify for the disabled person's Motability scheme, so have to source and fund our own vehicle. We are a family of 5, so need something with space. So I've had a look at the ID Buzz and the Volkswagen Multivan. Both have the space, legroom, sliding door, and boot capacity to carry wheelchairs and walking frames that we would need. Are there any other electric vehicles you would suggest? We are not keen on SUVs like the Kia EV9 or Hyundai Ioniq 9, as they are too large for London, and partly because of past experiences with security. Interesting.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts. Well, have you got any thoughts, Tom? Do you want to kick off on this one?
With sliding door, unless you're going to go for something that's a van, I think you've only got the Buzz, haven't you? Which is, of course, a van, but it's not the most van-like of vans.
Yeah. How about what's that Maxus? What's it called? Biffa 9.
Something 9.
Biffa 9.
Yeah.
That's it. Biffa. They take away your rubbish, don't they? Biffa. Biffa 9. That's it.
That was the Barnard's bargain for a while, wasn't it? But I've never even seen one. So
I don't know if the sliding door is necessary from looking at this, or whether it was just that was appealing about the Buzz and the Multivan. If the sliding door isn't absolutely necessary, I mean, for space, if it's space and room for 5, I mean, what about the ID7 Tourer?
Yes.
Loads of space, massive boot, new Enyaq. Put my pound in the Enyaq square jar. That has it has a massive boot, loads of space in that, and lots of space in the back seat as well. Easily get 3. There's like a little cubby thing in the middle that you can lift down. You've got a nice flat floor in there. And then Tesla Model Y.
That's true.
Yeah, they would be my thoughts. But again, you're not going to get the sliding door, but you would get the space, and they're not SUVs, which you seem keen to avoid.
The only other thing that came to mind, which is larger, has got sliding doors, may potentially be too large. Surely is there like an electric version of the Transit Tourneo? Is there something like that? I know we've reviewed the electric Transit Custom, but I'm not sure whether there's a passenger version of that.
Actually, talking about that, the PV5, the forthcoming Kia PV5, because that will have a passenger version, and that's going to have sliding door and a hinged rear tailgate as well. So we'll know more about that in the next couple of weeks. It'll be in the UK by the end of the year. So if it's not an urgent thing, that might be something to throw into the mix as well.
Mr. Watt wasn't keen on the security though, was he?
Yeah, but that was of a bigger EV9. That was the EV9. This is the van. I think it was more the SUV thing that he was a bit unsure of.
With the security issue. Yes.
Okay, and let us know in the comments below, or drop us an email if you have any other ideas and suggestions to throw into the mix there.
Okay. Shall we have a look in the post bag?
Yeah, let's quickly do the post bag.
Well, I think we have to start out with an intriguing comment that had us all scratching our heads. From Kevin Mayer 7571, who said, "I like 22 kilowatt chargers, but for different reasons."
I don't know what to do with that.
I fear.
What could they be?
I fear that's all in the delivery, isn't it? And as you showed there, Tom, if you put a menacing sort of tone on there, it does take a whole different
Yeah.
level of meaning, doesn't it?
Would you like to demonstrate that, the different level of meaning, the non kind of strange meaning that you could give to that comment? Yeah.
Well, I like 22 kilowatt chargers, but for different reasons.
Exactly.
It sounds completely different, doesn't it? So,
Oh, Tom. Let's move on and say welcome to the world of electric. Yay. Skinny Web. Hello, Skinny Web. We've had our first EV for a couple of weeks. Facelifted Citroen e-Berlingo. Chuffed to finally be in the game after years of spectating. And welcome to the club. Hope you are enjoying it.
Shall I do Mike.R5 Green, which I think might be a hint at what he's ordered. He said, "I got my ordering for my first EV, a Renault 5 E-Tech. Test drive booked for this week as they have cars touring the dealerships. Has a lot to live up to, so I'm excited to finally see one for real and drive it too."
Oh, let us know, Mike R5-Green. When you do drive it, drop us a comment or email podcast@electrifying.com and let us know. I hope it lives up to your expectations.
yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be going down to their dealerships this weekend, aren't they? Because, of course, the
They
Renault
are.
5 has finally arrived in the UK. So a lot of people are going to be going through what Mike is going through at the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I've got a comment here from D. Foles ID7, which gives you a clue which car is going to be mentioned here. But he says, thanks for the mention last week. My ID7 Tourer was indeed delivered as planned on Monday, and he's absolutely loving it. Especially with how cold it was this week. Well, we wouldn't know, would we, Ginny, because we weren't here. But anyway, he says it has to be the world's most comfortable car, and the kids absolutely love the comfort and warmth. Although the massaging seats freaked out my son when I launched it without telling him.
It's a good trick. Great trick.
If you want to see a car with massaging seats, you have to watch the video of Nikki testing the Thatcher spring and the Leap Motor T03.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, please do. It's very funny. Okay, let's move on to one of the subjects that we return to week after week after week after week in winter. Winter range pain. Simple. Talking about winter range, I've been quite disappointed in my EV9 this winter, as winter motorway range is consistently down to around 200, 220 miles. The owners groups on Facebook, FB, I think that is, seem to say this is normal, and even with aircon off and preconditioning done, are struggling to get over 2 miles per kilowatt hour. It's a shame that for a car I can get well over 300 miles on the motorway with in summer, even here in Scotland. That really does surprise me, and I refer you back to that brilliant range test that the Norwegian Winter E-Pre it's called, and just looking back over this one again, the EV9 was like one of the third or fourth cars. It only lost 12.5% of its range. And this is done in like really, it's a full. They drive it until the battery runs out, and they drive it in it's -10 conditions. It's a pool of 23 different EVs. It's windy. I mean but yeah, that's what you're finding. That's what you're finding. But it just shows, doesn't it, how real world driving really differs.
The thing is, the EV9 UK press launch was in Scotland, and we flew up there and we got diverted to another airport, so they had to rush all the cars over, and it was -1. And I drove that car for 2 hours, and it had been driven to the airport for another hour. And I looked when I arrived at the hotel, and it was 2.8 from memory.
Ah,
So I don't know. Maybe he's got the handbrake on.
I don't know. It is unusual. Generally, Kias are pretty efficient. And I mean, just looking at that range test, because they've just done the 2025 one, which incidentally, the winner of that was the Polestar, the P3. So that was the car that performed best. I think it lost, I want to say it was only 6%. of its range, which
Wow.
is very, really impressive, isn't it? Was it 6%? I was trying to find it here. 5%, Polestar 3. But the car that also did well in that was the EV3, 15%. So generally, they do perform well, Kias. So I do find that curious. Let us know if there's any other EV9 drivers listening who have had similar experiences. Okay. Right.
Shall I take the next stroppy one?
Oh, yeah, go on. I love this.
Robin Clark 2152 said, "Will you ever get tired of making excuses for unreliable appliances with terrible winter range, plummeting depreciation, and deficient, expensive charging infrastructure?"
I take it Robin doesn't like EVs. Do you think? Maybe? Okay. Let's move on. Although actually, the comment we haven't put on here that we should have, this is almost as good as the comment on Nikki's Leap TO3 and Dr. Spring video, who really was very happy to say, "You silly woman, the Leap TO3 is not built in Poland, it's built in not built in China, it's built in Poland, you silly woman." Only he was wrong.
Yeah.
Because the right-hand drive cars for the UK are built in China.
Yeah. I mean, they will eventually be built in Poland.
Yes, but
at the moment, it's China. Yes,
and build is kind of a loose term, isn't it? Because it's more about
Mm.
assemble. The components will come in, and is it Tichy in Poland? I'm never sure how to say that. Anyway, there. So I've got one for Tom here. You have a win and a lose with these two comments, Tom.
Okay.
Special
Yep.
circles. Tut tut, Tom, you did it again. We are not all iSheep. Globally, there are about 1.5 billion active iPhone users, but 3.3 billion active Android users. So we don't all use CarPlay.
What's this Android? I've never heard of it.
How could
Sorry?
you?
What's Android? Never heard of it. It's it's true. We do. I think we've all got iPhones, haven't we?
We've all got iPhones, and yeah, we do need to remember that. So sorry, but I think it's I don't know anyone who's got an Android. Anyway, there we go.
I know a couple of people.
Do you?
But I think it's a very media thing that we all grew up with Macs because the designers on magazines use Macs because they're better for designers. Yeah. And it was always the accountants who used PCs because they were
it's so
better,
true, that, isn't it?
Better for Excel. And so we just...
So in our minds, Apple is more fun and creative and naughty, and your Android and Excel is for when stuff you don't want, like got to cut your budget.
We're such snobs, aren't we? We really are. But
absolutely. Anyway, Mr. Troll 1 has just completely batted that comment away with this lovely comment. I just have to say, I cannot help it, but Tom has beautifully alluring eyes.
Do you?
You do. He does have lovely eyes. That's so nice. That is so nice. We had a little spate of lovely messages, didn't we? Last week?
Well, Gary Gotham says, "Ginny, your hair was amazing today."
Thank you, Gary. It's because I'd washed it. Doesn't happen every podcast.
Doesn't say that about me, does it? Maybe you'll say it about Batch's carefully carefully combed beard.
If you're listening to this on your streaming service and you're not watching, it's probably worth checking this video out on our YouTube channel because Batch is currently twirling his tash. He's twirling the ends of his tash in a kind of Edwardian, like minor member of the royal family.
Yeah.
Is this for some Amdram part you're playing, or are you actually going for this beard thing?
No, it came about because of Amdram. I had to grow it for a part, and then I decided just to keep it, and I quite liked it. So there we are.
Good. Okay. And then we had a nice message from Mike from where did Mike get his green corduroy jacket, asking the important questions. We'll come back to you on that one.
We're just influencers now, aren't we? That's all we are. So send us free stuff, designer people. It's I'll quite happily wear your things on the podcast.
Does this mean I have to do
Batalan, if you're listening, Tom would like to
Batch wants some more coloured pants. That means we're going to have to start doing videos, which is come with me while I get dressed to go and drive the new whatever.
No one would want to see that.
Nobody would want to see that. Nor would I ever want to do that. But no. Okay, let's move on. Okay, the name game.
Yeah,
Sorry, I got some. We've got major pronunciation issues.
you
Lewis
have.
Standing. It's not Xpeng. It's Chaopong.
Yeah, I checked on that, and he's right. Is that going to catch on? Is that
No,
going to
it's
be one
not.
of those things where it's going to be Hyundai or Porsche, where we just say it? I mean, we've kind of adapted to Dacia, haven't we? We've all said Dacia,
Dacia.
whereas we used to say it was Dacia, wasn't it?
It's the Skoda one, though. I know it's Skoda, but it just comes. Skoda just comes out all the time. But anyway, Barty Blug 22 said, "I love how you're all reverted to calling Hyundai. How much did that daft advertising campaign cost? They'd have been better spending the money sorting the 12-volt batteries on their EVs."
Ouch.
Well,
Ooh.
Hyundai tried it before, didn't they? They tried it, what,
Hyundai, Tom.
10 years ago or something, and they just gave
Hyundai.
up, saying it's not worth it. Spent
Yeah.
£1 million on an advertising campaign.
I think I'm quite easily led because I do now say Hyundai. I really do.
Yeah, I now say Hyundai, but I'm not going to say Chao Peng or whatever it is. It's Xpeng, isn't it? You know,
Chaopong.
Chao Peng. Sorry.
Chaopong.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not Xpeng, but you know, if that makes you happy, Batch.
but it
There we
is,
go.
though, isn't it?
Okay.
I mean,
Moving on. Mike was moaning about his repair costs, but we were also name checking great EV garages last week. And Thomas Abbott was one of 2 people who have recommended Wisley Automotive. Apparently, Wisley Automotive fixed my i3S heater for 900 quid using a BMW part. They come out to you and they specialise in i3s. Richard Piper also says I would endorse Wisley Automotive. Although based in London, they offer a nationwide mobile servicing repair service. That's great. I believe they've sold something like 700 used examples, so there's not much they don't know and haven't fixed. Brilliant. Big shout out to, is it Wisley or Wisely? I think it's Wisley, isn't it?
We're not to pronunciation again, are we?
I
It's
know.
probably pronounced Wisley or something.
Okay, if anybody from Wisley, Wisely, or Wisley Automotive would like to just drop us an email, podcast@electrifying.com, just to say how, if I'm pronouncing your name right. But shout out to them. Brilliant. Who wants to do the one from Mark
So
Parker?
Mark Parker 5585 said, Mike, I take your £1,200 and raise you another 10,000. BMW i3s can be ludicrously and painfully expensive to repair, even if it's not the traction battery. Get a good third-party warranty or cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Ooh,
I mean, back to that guy who was saying, "Oh, these cars are expensive to repair" and all that. Well, you know, petrol and diesel cars are expensive to repair too. It's not just electric cars that have issues. There's a great Instagram feed from a engine repair company who are just constantly rebuilding cars that, you know, Ford Eco Booms, they're nicknamed, of that need new engines, and Land Rovers that need new engines. My neighbour's just spent 2,100 quid on a new clutch for his Volvo. You know, these cars are expensive things, so you just have to look for the ones which are most reliable, look for a good warranty, and keep your fingers crossed, really.
Okay, yeah. Should we wrap up with a couple of comments on the van channel? What do you reckon, Batch?
Yes, shall I go? So Paul Meyer,
Yeah.
he says, great to see the van channel on the website, and it really is useful.
Yay!
The tie-up with Ford for vans and off-road trucks is one of the few decisions Audi VW have got right recently. Interesting. It also appears to be good for Ford, who could not have afforded to build its own VW MEB platform.
Yes.
And then I think this is the same question. It carries on saying, given many vans are bought by bean counters, it would be good to see more coverage of running costs beyond miles per kilowatt hour and warranty. Do the tyres last? What is the range with a full load on a cold day? And so on. That's quite an interesting idea, that, isn't it? It goes back to what we were saying earlier on with trying to do a range test. I mean, there are certain things which are quite difficult to test, but I think perhaps with vans, we might need to look at how we test those for our readers, really, potentially.
Yep, absolutely. It is a work in progress, the van channel. So any comments, any thoughts on how we can improve it, make it better, but we are going to be getting reviews of all the latest vans, all the latest news, and also we're going to be doing videos as well. So yeah, make sure you check it out if you haven't already. And on that note, before we become the kilowatt hour, should we say our goodbyes, team?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us. Do let us have your comments, your car buying questions, or just get in touch to say hello and compliment Tom on his beautiful eyes. You can do that podcast at electrifying.com, or you can drop us a note in the comments below. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.